Hello everyone, it's your girl Angie, the founder of Love Inspiry LLC, where our mission is to build more powerful, more transparent, and more durable relationships. Welcome to the Breakover Series, episode 8. Let's get to the root of it. Today I have for a guest Aaron Tolliver, who is going to share his experience going through a divorce and what it has did to him, his family, and how it has impacted his children. Stick around and let's talk love. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Love Inspiry YouTube. I have a guest here, Aaron Tolliver, who is going to join talking about getting to the roots of divorce. And so I have to start with my first question of, because I've been doing a divorce series about how we can prevent it, just opening the conversation of what we can do to prevent and get to a better place in our marriage. So I have to start out with asking you, what were your biggest hardships with your last marriage?
Communication was the main hardship. And you know, there was a lot of I don't want to call it resentment, but we grew apart, which is also one of those really big problems that happen when communication isn't present in the relationship.
Right.
So like now, my wife that I have now, she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. And we talk every day about something different.
Right.
You know, we communicate. And it turned out like years and years and years ago that when we were first starting our relationship as friends, we had come to the conclusion that men and women, 9 times out of 10, are saying the same thing. And we're just saying it in different ways. So we're comprehending it like that in different ways.
Right.
So, you know, once you get around your head that you don't have to always be right, it doesn't matter which side you're on. You don't always have to be right, and learn to be able to accept and be humble when you're not.
Yes.
You know?
I love that. I love that.
So that's what I really learned from divorce. And like my first divorce was really, really bitter. And I try not to be angry or upset about the things that happen between us.
Right.
But it's hard.
Right.
So a lot of times on both sides of it, you have to look within yourself to see what is wrong. Yeah. Like if you're getting married and divorced 4 or 5 times, you got to stop and look at yourself at some point.
Right. And identify what you could do
differently. And what you were doing wrong. Right. Exactly. Like I said, it all boils down to communication and how much love you have in your heart for each other.
For each other. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I have a question regarding that. So I had a guest, my previous guest, we talked about, I asked her a question of having a failed marriage, and her take on her failed marriage was completely something that I didn't expect for her to say. And she said she didn't look at her marriage as a failure. Can you give me your thoughts on having a marriage that didn't work out, and what you think about failure when it comes to marriage?
I believe this is the way I believe within my situation. Every marriage or divorce situation is different and unique because the people that are going through it have a unique point of view on it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't want to say that the marriage was a failure. I want to say that it was a life lesson.
Yeah.
And some people, it takes longer to learn while others get it, you know, the second time around.
Right.
Which it's not uncommon to happen these days. You know, in the olden days, once you got married, you were married for life or until you died.
That was it. Yep.
And it resulted in years of hardships for women, you know,
Yeah.
and hardships for men who were being taken advantage of by
Right.
their woman or their partner.
Right.
You know what I mean? It goes both ways.
Right.
You know, and nowadays, since it's not just male and female, it's
Right.
your partner. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Either way, you need to be friends so that if something does happen and you realize that you don't love each other the way you did at first,
Yes.
it no matter what, the kids always suffer.
Right.
That's one thing I do want to make perfectly clear. No matter what, no matter how gentle you try to do it, no matter how subtle and loving the breakup may be, the children always suffer.
Right. Do you think that
So
was your biggest hardship post divorce? Children and
yes,
yeah.
yes. And I have a problem because of the deception
Right.
that my ex-wife put me through and put like I don't know my son.
Right.
He doesn't seem to care to want to know me because I don't know what lies or deception she's put into my son's head that
Right.
makes me not want that makes him not want to communicate with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, you know, and like we have a daughter from my second relationship,
Right.
and she's, you know, my little girl. She's my second little girl. We all know who my first was, but she was my darling little child, the little girl with me and my better halves, you know, wonderful good stuff, but she also got the bad stuff. But she got so much of the good stuff, and she's so talented and so smart. And once again, I just want the best for her, but I wanted the best for him too. So when he
Right.
came to me needing things, I was always trying to be there for him. But I just feel, like I said, because of the deception that was put into his head, it makes me feel like I was robbed.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like he'll never know how great this side of his family
Right.
is, and
Right.
all of the achievements and accomplishments that have gone through with everyone in our lives.
Right.
You know, he will never know that joy, and it breaks my heart because he'll never know that joy.
Right.
You know, it's no matter what, the kids always suffer.
Yeah.
So we have to try and be not only tolerant with our partners or soon to be ex-partners, we have to tolerate each other
Mm.
for the child and make sure the child understands what is really going on.
Right.
You know, you don't want to sit there screaming and hollering at your child that your mom or your dad's a horrible person,
Right.
but you know you want to be able to be under control and explain to them, look, mommy and daddy are, you know, may have to, you know, separate for a little while, so I'm going to get my own place, and you know I can't really get into the situation, but I can tell you that mommy and daddy need a little time away from each other. It
Right.
doesn't mean I won't see you. Anytime you want to see me, call me.
Right.
I will be right there and stick to it. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah. I wrote in a book one time too, that when it comes to like separating and divorce or co-parenting, people
Yes,
have to stop talking through their kids.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't put your anger and frustrations with your partner or ex-partner through the children, because once again, it psychologically messes with their heads.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I agree with that.
And then they form these negative opinions about their parents,
Right.
you know. So we have to really be careful as a people
Yeah.
of passing the gene of hate onto our children.
Yes, because that is a gene. I do feel like that is hereditary. It just keeps going and going and going, and somewhere it has to stop.
Look, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So what happens when it gets to the point of no return?
Right.
Somebody always suffers horribly.
Right.
And it's the only way to try and fix,
right,
these broken children that grow up to be broken men and women.
yes,
You know,
yes, because that's all that happens is you set them up for failure in adulthood.
and you see, it's really weird because we also try to live through our children. So their accomplishments, although you may have helped to give them the talent and hone it and harness it, in the end, it's the children who should get the credit for what they do.
Right,
You
right,
know, we're trying to live through you
right,
instead of living with you.
right,
And
right.
it happens to everybody.
Yeah,
That feeling of joy when your kids accomplish something great, it's overwhelming because you feel like I did that.
right,
You know,
right.
it's like that's my creation. I
Yeah,
helped artist and make it better, and that's all me.
right.
You know.
Let let's let's
That
get let's get to the root of divorce. On top of communication, what other first of all, let me ask you this. Do you feel like people get divorced prematurely before they actually, decide to go to marriage counseling and do the work? Do you think people act premature before they, make that, are fully 100% okay with their decision to divorce?
I believe that is it depends on the relationship. If it's a relationship where both parties are ready and willing to really give it a try, then yeah, you don't just jump right out of it. If
Right.
you see that both parties are willing to give it an equal try on both ends, then you try to work it out.
Right.
But there are some relationships that are just too horrible
Yeah.
to work through.
Toxic. Yeah.
And you have to know when it's time to leave.
Mm. When would you say if somebody was to come up to you right now, what would you tell them? Like, when is your drawing point? When is your I know that I'm done with this. Like, I can't go any further. I can't move forward. What would you tell them? What was it for you?
For me, it was when my ex-wife, she ran away.
Mm.
And she did it in a very cowardly way. We had gotten into an argument and I had to go to work. And I told her, I said, it's pointless with me trying to talk to you at this point because you're not listening and you're just making me angry.
Mm.
I said, so let me go to work. I'll have time to think and we can discuss this later.
Right.
And when I came home, she was gone
Mm.
with my kid and everything. It took everything I possibly could not to take my son back in a violent, nasty, bitter divorce that would have cost 10 times as much
Right.
and hurt 100 times as much.
Right.
So I had to go in pre-divorce hearings.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put down the guidelines of what visitation rights are going to be, how much child support you're going to pay, how often you see the child,
Mm-hmm.
and the only thing that was honored out of what I was supposed to do is me paying child support.
Mm.
That was the only thing that was steady. And it was to the point like I've always had 3+ jobs my whole life,
Right.
you know? So the state of New Jersey was taking money out of every check at every job I worked for.
Wow.
So when the time came that I was too ill to work any longer, I was just, overpaid.
Yeah.
So it took, I believe, 2 years before they had even mentioned anything about child support at the end of it, because I had overpaid into the system, like a lot of money. It
Right.
was a lot. And in the end of it, all she wanted was the money.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So I I think every situation is unique, but you will know when there's no more communication, when there's no more love being felt, when there's no more life in your marriage. You will know, because it will break your heart.
Mm.
And that feeling of having your heart broken it's the worst feeling in the world. But when you feel that way about your partner,
Right.
it's time to move on.
Right.
And hopefully you can get out of the situation without hurting the person too badly.
Yeah.
But I always looked at it like this. If we're both hurting, there's no point in continuing this.
Right.
When we stop being friends, there's no point in continuing this.
Right.
Because then there's just the bitterness and the anger.
Yeah. Do you
You
think a
know,
lack of understanding plays a role in that too?
I think that's a big part of it, actually. Like, it's the same thing. Anytime you communicate to somebody, you want them to
Right.
understand.
Right.
And you don't want to present yourself as being too aggressive.
Right.
So when you're trying to talk to somebody, you want them to be able to comprehend what you are saying.
Right.
And you don't want them to take it as a form of aggression,
Right.
because it's not meant that way.
Right.
Sometimes you might have a little tone behind it, but that's the aggravation within you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
look, I don't mean this the wrong way, but I've about had enough. You
Yeah.
know that it, you got to try not to be too sensitive, especially when you're having problems in a relationship, because you want to understand each other. Like I said in the beginning, 9 times out of 10, my wife now and I came to this conclusion. We're saying the same things 9 times out of 10. We're just saying it in a different way.
Right.
And if there's no give and take, then the relationship won't work. Sometimes you give a little more, sometimes you get a little more.
Right.
But you gotta know how to stick together
Right.
during those hard times.
Right.
I told my wife now, I said, you know what? We've been through the good and we've been through the bad. And the bad didn't seem so bad because I was with you.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's the truth. I think about our bad times, and I mean, man, there were some bad times. But we made it through because we were together and stayed together.
Right.
We stayed on the same level with
Right.
things. We discussed things that we weren't sure whether we were on the same level, with it. But it,
You had to
it,
get uncomfortable to get comfortable.
exactly.
Yeah.
Look, there's going to be a lot of situations where you might come to your partner and be like, look, I don't want to gross you out, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get uncomfortable with yourself, with your partner, because you trust and love them.
Right. Vulnerability. Yeah.
So exactly, you like that, and always remember, be humble.
Mm.
You know what I mean? No
Yeah.
matter what,
Yeah.
always be humble and be thankful, because look, we're not rich.
Right.
So the only thing I have is my word and my heart and soul to, give. And if I'm giving it wholeheartedly
Right.
and
100.
willingly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Going back to understanding, do you think that people, when it comes, when you're in a marriage, do you think that people choose not to understand, or maybe they really don't understand? Because sometimes I feel like people choose not to understand your point of view and understand your side, just to say,
Once again, it goes back to the individual. But I think you are absolutely right. Some people just choose not to understand,
right,
because they don't want to care to understand your side.
right.
So when you have a person like that, sometimes it doesn't matter how much evidence you put in their face, how you explain it to them, or the fact that you're right and they're wrong.
Right.
That's just, you have to really be careful in those situations, because those are usually those sensitive people that I'm talking about, where like you might say something with a little bass in your voice.
Mm-hmm.
To them it's offensive, or they
Right.
feel like aggravated,
Right.
or think that you're coming off a little too aggressive.
Right. Right.
So like I said, that goes with each individual person, but for the whole, you have to make sure that you both understand what is going on.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the best way so that it's not a bitter divorce,
Right. And
because
so,
that's what it could be.
yeah, and speaking of bitterness, that brings me into just getting to the root. I feel like a lot of divorces happen too because of a lack of forgiveness. What is your experience on forgiveness, you know, during divorce, during your last marriage, post divorce? Obviously, I don't want to talk about this marriage because this marriage is working. It's great.
Look, the marriage I have, like I said, sometimes it takes some of us 2 times, but the second time around, I got it right. But as for the first time,
Next week on episode 8, part 2 of the Breakover series.
Have you 100% forgiven your ex-wife?
Everything that I'm feeling inside of me, I have to get rid of it.
Yeah. Do you think Black men have a harder time staying married than another race?
I was in a fight every damn day.
And there you have it, guys. I'll see you all in part 2.